Thank you everybody for coming today. It's a special day, so thank you for using your Friday last day for to come here to my presentation. As Steven mentioned, this is the title of my presentation, flowing through changes how extreme climate event reshape and transform the tropical stream ecosystem. Because this is my first ground change, so I will give you an overview of my research. Yep. As Steven mentioned, I a lecturer here in UVM Rubenstein, but also I am also associated researcher in Luquillo LTR. I will explain what is LTR very soon. And I am a senior personnel in a streams project, which is located in La Selva, Costa Rica. I will explain you this very soon. First, I want to recognize and say thanks to all my collaborators, because this is not my own work. These collaborators have been working in these sites for a long time. So this allowed me to come here and present these, I think, amazing findings from so many institutions, from agencies to universities. So thanks to everybody that collaborated these two projects that I will mention: Streams project in Costa Rica and Luquillo LTR in Puerto Rico. This is the structure of my presentation. I will talk about me. Sorry, a little boring, but sorry for this, but just to introduce myself. Then I will talk about how climate change is or extreme climate events are impacting the ecosystem and introduction. I will then talk about the importance of long-term research to better understand these events. And then I will use two study case study, Costa Rica and Puerto Rico, and then just a take-home message. Again, sorry for this, but I grew up in Turrialba, in Costa Rica, in the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. It's a very scenic town. It's very rural. We have our Central Park, beautiful Central Park. We have a volcano very close to where my mom lives, very, very, very close. I will say 20 kilometers, more or less. It's active. It's currently, we have like a 15 years active. So it's just sometimes you can hear the volcano moving and shaking. There is a beautiful streams also. Basically, the streams, most of the streams born here in the volcano and flow through Turrialba. We receive so many ecosystem services from these streams, like recreation, for example, fishing. People use also for extract materials like a sand. Also recreation, like a kayak and other activities. However, these ecosystems, particularly in Turrialba, face so many challenges. For example, urbanization to Turrialba scale, but even though it cause an effect. Pollution, especially from this urbanization. Agriculture, especially because sugarcane, there is an intense sugarcane activities around. Floods events, because these streams born basically in the volcano. There is a huge change in the elevation, and there is a lot of stream power. So we can pass here. You can see the Turrialba River, and when it's rainy season, it could produce a huge flood, big issues in the Turrialba and dams. No, Turrialba. In Turrialba, there is one important dam, the second most important dams in Costa Rica. And probably you hear this story that Costa Rica produces more than 90% of the electricity based on hydropower, but it costs, no? It have a cost, especially in species migration. Dams limit the species migration, and also the reservoir is producing a lot of CO2 gases, no, methane gases. So taking inspiration of this situation, plus my background in biology, my general question or the motivate my research is how do stream ecosystem and water resources in general respond to extreme climate events and anthropogenic activities. This is a broad question. So to address this broad question, I'm working in two levels. One is a community ecosystem level. I'm working with the species interaction, especially in food webs. I will show you some our findings in food webs, ecosystem processes, especially organic matter processing or organic matter decomposition, and how urbanization is affecting these important ecosystem processes. Long-term variability. I have some findings to show you the long-term variability. Biomonitoring and water quality also. So this is one of my focus, and the second focus is an individual level. Individual level, especially evaluating or determining the physiological response. Here, for example, it was like 3 years ago, time flies. 3 years ago, in La Selva Biological Station, I was conducting an experiment to evaluate how episodic acidification events, I will explain you what is episodic acidification events, affect the physiological response of different insects. So I was basically quantifying the chlorine and sodium concentration in the hemolymph, which is the equivalent to the blood in insects, in some particular insects. Then secondary production, basically this is the equivalent to the new tissue, no? How extreme climate events is affecting the formation of new tissue. This is secondary production and size variability. Insects, for example, for global warming, would be smaller just because the global warming and the metabolism is high. So this is my research project. For the sorry. For the purposes of my presentation, I will focus on the extreme climate events and how extreme ecosystem responds to these events. Well, as you probably know, we are in the middle of the climate crisis. For example, human-induced global warming have caused a 1.1 degrees Celsius, which has triggered an unprecedented events, climate events. For example, in the last assessment reports, there is a medium confidence that, for example, just to say something, the human and the global warming caused by the human has increased the fire weather. Very likely, for example, the global sea level rise, and also the increase in the hot streams events. No, this is based on the last assessment report. No, the thing with this is, as you probably know, this will continue. No, this will continue. The fact the extreme climate events we will continue disrupting all the ecosystem processes that I will mention very soon. But also, these climate-driven impacts will disrupt ecological function and ecosystem services. Also make the ecosystem more vulnerable to the new events. No, every time will be more vulnerable, especially due to the legacy of these events, more frequent and intense events. So for better understand the impacts of the extreme climate events, long-term research is important. Long-term research, long-term data. However, obtain this kind of data is challenging, no? Especially in the tropical area where we, due to the political situation, we invest less in research, no? Just to give you an example, Jackson and Fuderer in 2006, they published this paper where they identify for freshwater studies, there is just only 46 papers that use long-term research in general. And this is especially true, the lack of long-term data in the tropics, where just they identify just one paper using long-term data. What is long-term data in freshwater ecology? Suppose they define long-term data from more than 5 years of data. This is long-term. Probably For the forest ecology, this is no long time, but for freshwater, this is a long time, especially because long-term data is hard to, to maintain, no? It's expensive, or the goals change and everything, no? Second, so, so taking advantage from our ongoing research in Costa Rica and Puerto Rico, I will discuss how different phenomena, for example, episodic acidification events related with the Niño-Southern Oscillation is impacting the ecosystem in Costa Rica. Then I will move to Puerto Rico to show you or to discuss the main findings due to the 2015 droughts. And then 2 years later, the Hurricane Irma and Maria. So as I mentioned, well, we are here in Vermont. As I mentioned, I will discuss findings in Costa Rica here, and then the findings in Puerto Rico. I'm from Costa Rica, but in Costa Rica I did my undergrad and my master, and in Puerto Rico I did my PhD and my postdoc. So let's start with Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, again, I'm working with an LTREP, which is a long-term research in environmental biology, established in 1988. So we have this data since decades, no? This is La Selva. Our study site is located in the Selva, in the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. Very typical lowland streams. Here, for example, is my students from the University of Costa Rica, Beatriz and Maria Jose, deploying these emergent traps. Emergence trap, basically to quantify the amount of energy that the streams are producing and is exported to the terrestrial ecosystem. This is important because the aquatic terrestrial linkages, no? This is one way. So La Selva, some streams in La Selva and probably in other places in Central America is suffering something called episodic acidification events. But because we have a long-term data in Costa Rica, so we were able to catch this event. So what is an episodic acidification event? Basically, it's a short-term and sudden decrease in pH levels in the aquatic system, no? What is the mechanisms behind this? Well, imagine in dry season, no? In dry season, usually there is an increase in the litter fall and death, root death. There is a organic matter processing that start in the soil, in the ground. Then, yes. So in the wet season, the CO2 due to this processing is transformed to the streams just because the natural runoff and groundwater, no? However, when the dry season, the previous season is severe, is super dry, there is more CO2 in the streams, and this CO2, the CO2 combined with water produce this carbonic acid. This occurs because in lowland streams, because they flow in super slow, no, and are able to produce, or this reaction, it happened there, no. So this decrease the pH, decline the pH. Is considerable, no. For example, this phenomenon was observed mostly in the 1997, 1998 El Niño events. So where the pH decreased to 3.7 units, which is occurring naturally, nothing related with volcanic activities, it's just naturally. And because this is a stream pH is in units, logarithmic units, so this is significant and relevant and have consequences in the biota, in the general biota, no? Short-term analysis conducted by Ramirez and collaborators and published in 2006 found that floods and pH were the main factor influencing the macrovertebrate assemblages in the years 1998, which was related with the Niño events. Before continue, I want to introduce aquatic macroinvertebrates because they're beautiful. So basically, as a freshwater ecologist, we are working with the nymph and larvae from different macroinvertebrates that probably you saw in your backyards or walking along the Lake Champlain's. For example, mayflies, stoneflies, flies like a crane flies, caddis flies, dragonflies, which is odonata, on beetles. So this is the thing that I spent years looking for these organisms. No, so macroinvertebrates are animals without backbones that can see in the naked eye. Include insects. Most of the macroinvertebrates are insects, but also include snails, shrimps, crabs, leech also, or water mites. This is a macroinvertebrate. No? Going back to the pH and other studies. So this was analyzing the 1998 data. No, we continue. Well, Minor Hidalgo, thank you to Minor, continue monitoring and collecting samples in the same streams for 20 years. And still Minor is working with us with the same device. So now when I did my PhD thesis, my first chapter was analyzing now not just 1 year, 20 years of data. First 7 years collecting monthly, and the rest was quarterly. This is the richness taxa per square meter, and this is the density 1,000 individuals per square meter. And as you can see here, in both, even in biomass, in one stream, we have several streams, but the pattern is the same. Both are declining, significantly declining. So long-term data analysis that are included in my first chapter of my thesis, we found that the ENSO events, the Niño-Southern Oscillation events, are the main factor controlling or influencing the aquatic macroinvertebrate richness, abundance, and biomass. What is the mechanisms behind these things? Well, the ENSO is a large-scale phenomenon, tropical phenomenon, but impact temperate region also. Influence the precipitation patterns, and the precipitation pattern ultimately influence the discharge. No, so this thing, the pH or the episodic acidification event is just one phenomenon in the long-term picture, no, of this thing. No, what is the relevance for this to find that the Niño-Southern Oscillation is affecting the precipitation pattern or regime in La Selva, and then ultimately affecting the discharge? So this plot is showing the number of extreme precipitation events in La Selva Biological Station. Extreme precipitation events I define like a 62 millimeters in 24 hours, which is enough to increase the caudal or the discharge, the double in our streams. Since 1967 to 2016, and we found that the extreme precipitation events is increasing. It's increasing. So it's climate change prediction. No, we will have this flash drought or less precipitation, and eventually, suddenly, a huge precipitation events like this. I was in La Selva in that moment. In less than 24 hours, or basically it was like in 10 hours, we passed from a baseline discharge to the double or the triple of the caudal, and all the macrovertebrates is just flushed out downstream. No, and it's because we are seeing this decline in macroinvertebrates. No. Just recap from Costa Rica, the ENSO events combined with the unique physicochemical condition are driven spatial, because we have a lot of streams showing basically the same pattern, and temporal variability. This is affecting the biota. We have the evidence from working in La Selva for 40 years. And the thing is, like, the prediction suggests that the El Nino events will be more severe. And for example, in 2015, with the El Nino Godzilla, I don't know if you remember this, in 2015, we expect to see another drop in pH. It wasn't like the 1998, but we expect that things. It's when you are working in the field, no? Okay, this is the first thing that I want to mention. Now I want to move to Puerto Rico to show you some findings in Puerto Rico. So we consider Puerto Rico as a disturbance mediated system. For example, in this figure, there is basically is showing the most relevant climate phenomena that have occurred in Puerto Rico or impact Puerto Rico since the establishment of the long-term ecological research program in 1988. So it's another project where I'm collaborating with decades of data. As you can see here, there is a lot of hurricanes, droughts, tropical storm, but I will focus on the 2015 drought and the 2 years later in the Hurricane Irma and Maria hurricanes. So I will define droughts with this icon and hurricane with this other icon. So because we have a lot of data for these things, so we know that every 10 to 20 years there are enough consecutive dry days that a small headwater stream become dry, and there is basically a habitat become limited, no? For example, in this photo, it was the 2015 drought. You can see here more or less where the water level is usually, and this is in the peak of the drought, no? This cause decrease the connectivity, drought decrease the connectivity in the streams. Like for example, this is another of my streams. Increase the pool isolation. Also the greenhouse gases production. We are quantifying the production of CO2 and methane in these pools. Probably we are familiar working with pools like this, because there is an oxid condition, and this anoxic condition is causing methane. The riparian vegetation enter into the stress, and they just release all the leaf, and we saw a peak in the leaf litter fall. The organic matter processing just decreased because the water quality it decreased, no? All the physicochemical variable change, less oxygen, high temperature, and the presence of sensitive taxa decrease also. So motivated for all these things, my research question in this case is to understand how a stream ecosystem responds to a drought, no? So again, 2015, it was Puerto Rico suffered one of the most severe drought in the last 5 decades. This drought also affect the north of South America, the entire Central America, the Caribbean, also including the south of Florida. And here, just to put in context other droughts, probably one of the most similar drought was 1994, but it was very located in Puerto Rico. These other plots show the cumulative rainfall in our study sites since 1975 to 2021. And we observed that in 2015, Puerto Rico received 45% less precipitation compared with the long-term average, just surpassed by the 1994 drought, which again was very located. What we observed, part of the thing that we observed during the 2015 drought. So this plot shows the percent of the macroinvertebrate feeding habits. So we can quantify the functional traits of different macroinvertebrates. This is the 2015 year. February was normal February, and then the peak of the drought in June and July, and then the rain resumed, no? So the thing that we observed that it was achieved in a diverse let's say, healthy assemblages or community of macrovertebrates before the drought to one assemblages or community dominated especially for the tolerance taxa, and especially worms. Worms do not emerge from the streams; they stay in the stream. So there is a huge impact on the aquatic terrestrial linkages. Less insects because they are more sensitive. Mayflies, caddisfly are more sensitive. Interrupt basically or disrupt the energy flow from the streams to the terrestrial ecosystem, predator in the terrestrial ecosystem. For example, spiders, birds or lizards. Lizards is funny in Puerto Rico, quantifying macrovertebrates and shrimps because the lizard just came very close to you, just to taking advantage from shrimps. That is, so all the thing is like all these organisms, all these terrestrial predators depends from the streams, no? This is part of an example of the thing that we saw during the 2015 drought. We try to summarize our main findings with these conceptual diagrams, where we have the wet part, decreasing the connectivity, everything that I explained already, and the consequences in the terrestrial part. So this is part of my postdoc. During my postdoc, I try to establish a project to simulate drought condition. Or you're never going to simulate drought condition because rain. So it was simulate flow manipulation, no. So we use one streams, Prieta A, as a reference streams. And we have another stream, Prieta B, as experimental streams. We will divert some water from upstream 100 meters to downstream. So we are collecting basically everything there, no? Like a physical-chemical characteristic, biological aspect, macrovertebrate, algae, shrimp, and other gases, also conducting some experiments. So stay tuned with this. We have 3 years. 3 years now of data. So basically, this is the next postdoc. He construct the dam. Let me see if I can. Yeah, this is how it looks like, the diversion. So it's putting some water from upstream to downstream, and we are monitoring this segment, no, with this pipe, and it's working. It's working. This is 2022. So we start in 3 days. Basically, it declined the stream flow to 40%. Very similar to the thing that we observed during the 2015 drought. So it's working. Stay tuned with the papers that came out. So hurricane now. So Puerto Rico location here in the middle of the Caribbean Sea make the island exposed to hurricanes, no? Our data show that approximately every 20 years, there is a hurricane that crosses the island, and every 40 years, more or less, one of hurricane pass over our study sites in Luquilla Mountains. And this happened in the 2017, where 2 hurricanes, Irma and Maria, passed for close to our study area, no? So in that case, my research question was quantify the stream food webs, the response of the stream food webs to this main disturbance, or climatic phenomena, no? Before going to in detail about stream food webs, I want to mention that the food webs, the stream food web are, there's 2 main energy sources, algae and leaf litter. This is the main energy source in our streams, no? And these have a particular isotopic signature, carbon-13 and nitrogen-15, no? And these isotopes is reflected in the consumers. So we can track the nitrogen-15 and carbon-13 from the bases, from the energy sources to the consumers. And we did it. we did it. This is before the hurricane, 8 months before the hurricanes. Here, this plot is showing you the three most important energy sources: leaf litter, algae, and biofilm, which is a mix between carbon from the leaf litter and carbon from the algae, but mostly from the algae. These plots is showing the source contribution. I want you to focus on the x-axis, forget for now the y-axis. So close to 1 means that this is the most important energy source, no? For two shrimps, which dominate 90% of the biomass in our assemblages. So before the hurricane, we can observe that the leaf litter was the most important energy source in our streams. Of course, because the canopy was closed, was closed. So this is something that we call like brown food webs, which is a food web based on the terrestrial sources, no? However, then a month after that, the hurricane impacted Puerto Rico. The canopy was totally defoliated, and we observed this thing with the same organism, no, not the same, but the same taxa. Now the algae, the biofilm, which have a huge contribution of the algae, was the most important energy source in our streams. Now we call this like a green food web, which is a food web based on algae, which makes sense, but we saw these changes in our stream. We continue collecting data. So this is 2017. We have 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 of isotope data. The only thing that we don't have is time to analyze this data, but it's there. It's there. So stay tuned also with the following the data. So what have we learned from Puerto Rico? No, both drought and hurricanes significantly impact the ecosystems. Basically, drought typically reduce the stream flow, impacting the riparian vegetation and physical chemical characteristic, also modifying or influencing the consumers. But the streams recover or going back to something that resemble the pre-drought condition quickly after the rain resume, no? In contrast, hurricane can have long-lasting effect that we are still like seeing these impacts on the ecosystem. Now, as a bonus, because I give you some take-home message from our streams, I want to talk about a project that we have here in Vermont, that we are working in the Cherbourg Pond. This is led by Mindy Morales, professor here in Rubenstein. I'm co-PI for this project. The project is a dynamic of algal pollution and alteration by the stream hydrological regimes. And our aim is basically understand how these hydrological changes, particularly things that we saw 2 years ago in the summer, is influencing the nutrients dynamic in tributaries in the Cherbourg Pond, and at the end, ultimately affecting the eutrophication in Cherbourg Pond. No? Again, Mindy Morales is working with in the lake in Cherbourg Pond in the pond. So you will see findings from Mindy very soon. I'm working in 5 streams that drain into the Cherbourg Pond. We are collecting different variables. I will explain you in these 3 streams in red. This is our stream in a Pond Road, a cheese factory, and the 116 road. In these streams, we're collecting nutrients, which makes sense. If you are familiar with this area, there is a high agricultural activity there. Nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, which is soluble reactive phosphorus, ammonia, physicochemical characteristic, pH, conductivity, temperature, string algae. We are quantifying and waiting for a student that wants to analyze diversity and biomass. This chart, which makes sense, no? Especially here with using these sensors and the string gauge, aquatic macrovertebrates. And we are expecting this thing, no? This was the last year with the leftover or burial. This is cheese factory, for example. Check this, the increase in the water level. So basically, because the phosphorus is in the sediment, mostly is in the sediment, and other nutrients is in the sediment. So all these nutrients is when events like this, which will be more frequent and in Vermont, is basically is transporting all the nutrients to the ponds and probably causing eutrophication. So we have a technician in the RUP lab evaluating quantifying the nutrients. I have two amazing undergrads, Oli, Micaela, working with the macrovertebrates. We start identifying macrovertebrates. Some of them is like dragonflies, toe biters. Here we quantify also, this is beetles, Elmides. We quantify biomass. So because we will see abundance, richness, and biomass, and functional traits. Check it out this. There's a lot of snail in our streams, which is indicate that there is a lot of algae there, probably nutrients, nutrients stimulate the algal production, and this because snails are scrapers. So stay tuned with this. And with that, thank you so much. Happy to take questions, and thank you for all my amazing collaborators that have been working for so many years in unprecedented conditions after hurricanes, after droughts, and now working here in Vermont is also in temporary regions. So